Here you go. Hi, my name's Jordan Miller. I'm representing ISU. This is my associate,
Alex Skirkin.
What's your name?
I'm Greg Newbert.
And then what's your occupation right now?
I am the first assistant electrical manager at Menards in Washington, Illinois.
Okay, I'm just going to ask you a few questions. Some personal questions, some just current questions about your job, nothing crazy. If you don't answer one, don't feel obligated to. If it offends you, you don't have to answer, just tell me. I'll pass on to the next question. I've got a few informal questions, some formal questions, and some pertain to Menards, and then some pertain to you. Can you explain what first got you into managing?
Yeah, funnily enough, I never actually thought I'd be a manager for Menards. I was pretty certain it was just going to be a short-term job, and then the longer I stayed, opportunities came available to make a lot more money, so I kind of stepped up just for that reason.
How long have you worked for Menards?
About 6 years. I'll have my 6th year this December.
Do you enjoy it? I mean, is this something you want to pursue in the future? Or?
There's points of all jobs that you enjoy and some that you don't enjoy. I'd say overall it's an enjoyable experience. I mean, I love the people I work with. The job can be tedious at sometimes and stressful, but yeah, overall I enjoy it.
And I know you're an assistant manager. Do you see the opportunity for you to move up to a manager for a different department?
Yeah, definitely. There's an opportunity knocking around every corner for this company. I mean, a lot of it involves moving, but in my personal case, my manager is moving on, and I'm probably going to be taking his space, actually.
That's exciting. So what's the easiest part of managing?
The easiest part of managing for me is I've always been a personable person in general. You know, it's not hard for me to develop trust or a relationship with somebody, so I've always enjoyed that.
How many people do you work with?
Right now at this store, I only have 4 other people that I really work closely with. I mean, there's 100 and some in the store, but that I actually manage is about 4.
Okay. So do you plan on getting in new people anytime soon? Any morning stalkers?
It's hard to say. You know, right now they're talking about we might get another person, we might not. Payroll's always an issue for this.
So what's the screening process for Menards when hiring new people?
You know, I haven't been involved in the hiring process for a lot of people. I mean, the general managers and HR coordinator do a lot of that. The interviews I have done with people, I basically ask them, simple questions, not try to get too detailed. Are you work-oriented? How are you with your hands? Have you done any electrical stuff before?
Okay. Do they do, like, drug testing, anything like that?
Yeah, they definitely drug test every person that works here. After your screening process, that'd be basically the last step. If we've decided to go ahead and hire that person, they are sent out for a private drug testing.
Okay.
Or if you're involved in, after you've been hired, involved in a wreck or something like that, or hurt yourself.
Well, okay. Well, we know you're a manager. What are your responsibilities? What do you actually do here?
My main goal, I guess, would be to run the department smoothly. Things like making sure there's freight on the shelves and product is available, checking to make sure we're making payroll every day, and doing the schedule. Things
Gotcha.
like that.
Okay. So, do you guys do meetings on a weekly basis, or is it monthly?
We do. There's a weekly Friday meeting, which would be all the managers and or assistants who's ever working that Friday that go and basically review how every department's doing and how the store in general is doing and things like that.
Okay. Do you do anything for the people underneath you other than managers?
Yeah, there's a monthly meeting in every department where we try to go over some product knowledge issues and things like that, or if we've been seeing reoccurring issues within the department, we try to address those.
Okay. Have you do you add stuff to that meeting? Like, do you do it by the book, or do you go out and learn something yourself and then you bring it to the team member? Or?
It depends. For instance, this particular meeting we just did, we had gotten back from seminars, which is essentially 2 days of nonstop product knowledge, and there was a lot of things I learned. I've been doing this for quite a long time. If I don't know them, I feel like my team probably doesn't. So this particular meeting was pretty much entirely product knowledge, and we stayed on that the whole hour-long meeting. But they can range from, when there's not any new product to basically standing around and essentially not doing very much to like this last one where we take care of a lot of stuff.
Okay. What's the biggest piece of advice you could give to a new manager or someone trying to get into your field?
I would say the biggest piece of advice I could ever get anybody working into management is you should never expect on someone what you wouldn't do yourself. I've always been a lead by example type of guy. I feel like it's the easiest and fastest way to grow trust and respect with anybody that works underneath you. It's it's hard to take direction sometimes for some people, especially if they've worked there longer than you. But if they see that you can do the job yourself, it's easier for them to take your direction.
So you don't boss them around. You actually work hand in hand with them.
I've never been one to really boss anybody around unless there's a need. I find that the people I work with in general, I've always been there doing what I wanted them to do regardless, or with me side by side. I mean, there's an occasion for bossing somebody around. Sometimes you have your days where people aren't really getting stuff done and you need to tell somebody, but I've never been one like a drill instructor type, barking orders all day. That's just not really my style.
Have you been a manager for any other companies other than Menards?
I have. I was a shop manager for Walmart in their tire and lube section.
Okay. So between Menards management and then Walmart management, is there a complete difference, or are you the same kind of manager?
We didn't really do any meetings or anything like that when I was in the automotive section at Walmart. They kind of kept that almost out of the store section. It was almost completely your own deal. So I didn't feel quite as involved there, whereas here you're in with every department every time. But in general, I'd say for me there weren't a lot of differences, sort of it being a different product,
Okay. Here, this one should pertain to you pretty well. Is there any complications with managing in your work life and then bringing it back home, or vice versa?
I hear quite a few people complain about that. Our schedules are really crazy. You work 50-hour weeks. Sometimes you're here at 6 in the morning. Sometimes you're here till midnight. For me, it's never really been an issue. My wife and I trying to find our own personal time away from here. I don't bring a lot of work home, but it has been an issue for some people due to the crazy schedules. It's not like a first, second, third shift job. It's every time.
Okay. How did you get this management job? Why did you pick electrical?
Electrical was actually chosen for me at my previous store, and then I saw that this position had opened up, and the current manager at this store actually called me and asked if I would take the position. And I thought, well, if somebody's going to call you and ask you to be the boss, you really probably should go ahead with that one.
Okay. And then you said your work schedule is pretty crazy. I mean, are you talking like 5 o'clock shifts, or what do you?
It's kind of a rolling schedule. Every other weekend off, and then every other Tuesday, Thursday off. So I mean, your general shifts are maybe a 10 to 10 or a 6:30 to 3, somewhere in there. But it depends. It changes every day, basically.
So I see one of the hardest parts, and I've learned this through ISU and doing other jobs, is between your team members and yourself and your other managers around you, being tardy or late. Is that something that you see a lot here?
It's been a problem. It's been a problem for myself over time. It's I'd say between crazy hours and the stress and things like that, it's easy to be a little bit late here and there. I don't have a problem with anybody in my department currently right now. Everybody seems to be able to get it done just fine.
Okay. And will that actually affect you if you're trying to get a promotion doing something else?
I'd say it depends how big of a problem it is. If you're 10 minutes late once a month, that's never really going to be an issue. I mean, obviously we encourage someone to be on time all the time, but there's a point system basically. I mean, if you're too high up in that point system, if you've had too many lates, it could be an issue definitely to promote.
Okay. And you said you've worked for Walmart and then obviously Menards. Have you worked anywhere else?
Yeah, I've done plenty of jobs, from detasseling corn to working at a car wash to building race cars in between the two of these.
Okay. And then do you have a degree or anything in?
I do. I have a degree in fire science. It's an applied science degree relating to fire science, I should say. And then I have, it's not quite a degree, but it's an ASE certification for automotive technology.
Now, in your life, have you seen anything that's prepared you for this position as a manager?
I have. I've been in retail for almost a decade now, and I mean, you have your great bosses and you have your bosses that you probably don't care for so much. I try to take away a little bit of everything from each one of the good bosses I've ever worked with. You just take that little bit from them and remember it and apply that to your management style, and it gets you a lot farther, a lot faster.
Very cool. And here's a question. I don't know if you're comfortable answering it, but do you think your salary compared to the same occupation, different company, is adequate?
I wouldn't want to get into specifics of that, but I can say this is the highest paying job I've had. I think it's very competitive, especially with the amount of promotions and things like that, certainly with overtime.
Okay. And then when you're hiring people and you're working with other people in your department, is there traits that they have that you look for that every single person has, or when you're hiring someone?
You know, I would say no. I mean, there's certainly traits I look for, but I wouldn't necessarily say it would have to be with every person. You're always going to have your hands-on people, and you're going to have your paperwork people. You know, and what I mean by that is there's the guy that's going to want to build everything, touch everything, do everything, and then there might be another person who's really organized, might want to, you know, make sure everything looks perfect, make sure all the emails and the paperwork are filed. So for me, you have to have a mix of both. If you have all hands-on guys, you're not going to get anything done. If you have all paper type people, you're not going to get anything done that way either. So there's certainly traits, but yeah, you gotta pick and choose your people like that.
Okay. And what do you feel is the strongest attribute for you as a manager?
You know, I would say my personality. I kind of touched on that earlier. I've always been a charismatic person, storyteller. You know, people feel like they get along with me really quickly. It can be a slight hindrance. Occasionally, people feel like they're too much your friend and you're not enough their boss. But once you build a rapport with people, you know, I tend to get my respect because I feel like I earn it. I've been there, I've done it. I can show you that I'll work side by side with you and do it. So once you have respect, they can still be your friend, but then they also respect you as a boss, and that's never really been a problem for me.
Okay. What's the most difficult thing about managing a team?
Trying to get everybody to get along. You know, we work a lot of opposite shifts, and you hear a lot of they didn't do anything, they didn't do anything, they didn't do anything. Oh, a GM has said it the best I've ever heard. If your guy managed to not get anything done and you managed to not get anything done, how come everything is done? So I mean, people are obviously working, but it always feels like because you're not with that person, you did more.
Okay. And then you said, as stated before, you're an assistant manager. Do you work with your actual manager?
Very slightly. You know, we both work essentially the same schedule, but on opposite weeks. It's a 2-week rotating schedule. So we only see each other for maybe 2 or 3 hours a week, really. There's not a lot. I mean, sometimes our overlap is greater if you stay a little later if you work with the person. But in general, no, the manager and the assistant don't really work together very much at all.
So could you see that as an advantage or a hindrance? Or
I've seen it both ways. It kind of depends on each department, each team, the manager and the assistant. Some of them work great together, you know, and they basically flow right into the next week. Others of them have completely different mindsets, and it can be clashing, you know, because your team members work with both of them. They're not on those rotating schedules. They might work 8 to 5 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they get both of you every other week. So I mean, it can be a problem, but really it's about just being cohesive with the other person.
Do you use punishment as an encouragement, or do you use rewards to motivate your employees?
You know, I've never been much for punishment. I don't feel like it motivates anybody at all. If I tell you, Jordan, you're not doing anything good today, I'm going to send you home. You're not motivated. You're happy to get out of here most of the time. You might think about it later that you're upset that you didn't get your paycheck, but I've always thought thank yous and attaboys go a lot farther. You get something done, wow, man, that's really great. Handshake, let me buy you a drink, let me buy you lunch, you know, something. You got to show appreciation. Just yelling at somebody just makes them disrespect you. I mean, and there is a time for punishment, obviously. You can't let everything go. There are times, but in general, I'd rather use a reward than punishment.
On a company level, do they have the same mindset?
You know, that's getting into maybe some corporate policies that I probably wouldn't want to go into, but I can say there's a specific set of guidelines that they use, you know, but mostly it's for lates and things like that. It's not necessarily, oh, they didn't do this, what should we do? You know, I'd say that's more of a management discretion.
So it's more punishment. Do they have rewards for your employees?
I mean, they do have rewards. They have programs. They have, you know, big dogs or sales leader contests, things like that. So you can. Yeah.
Very cool. How do you deal with the conflict among your employees?
You know, it depends. A lot of times you always have to make sure you get both sides. I'll say that first and forefront. You can never, ever go into that without seeing what the other person has to say. I've seen that blow up in people's face time and time again. But most of the time, it's people, they got to solve it themselves. I mean, you might be able to push them in the right direction, but let's say somebody thinks they shouldn't have got a write-up and the other person thinks they should have. You know, you can kind of sit both parties down and see if you can't find a common ground or something, you know.
Okay. And another thing you see between your team members and your employees and your management is dress code and everything like that. If you have someone who doesn't shave a lot or who has a weird hairdo, do you see something? Do you see a hindrance from that?
You know, I tell you, I mean, there's going to be a corporate policy, I think, still for basically every country that there is. You know, if you have a vulgar tattoo, facial piercings a lot of times can be an issue, or really, really, you know, out of the way things. You got to 4-foot tall pink mohawks, stuff like that we're not going to allow. And me personally, I don't find it's a hindrance. Somebody can look a little different and deliver the best guest service that anybody's ever seen, and they're going to be an outstanding team member 100%. But I have seen that where, especially the older generation, tends to be a little standoffish towards it. So I would say that unless it's something really out there, it's not really going to be an issue.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. Can you state your name one more time?
Yeah, I'm Greg Newbert, the First Assistant Electrical Manager with the Washington, Illinois Menards.
And thank you.
Yeah,
I'd be
absolutely.
happy to see you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.